Okay, let's keep on modeling away at the door. Things are looking pretty good. Of course, we have some nasty denting taking place that we haven't cleaned up yet. We'll get to that. Right now, we're just kind of getting the initial surface in place. Now, we have something kind of interesting going on with the surface as I jump between the smooth and low-res versions, in that we have a section of the door which kind of levels off and folds back in down toward the window. So we have to create that, get that into play. And you're not going to be able to see that very well just like off the basic pictures. You'll notice like we have a bit of a flattening off up here, and this is where the door handle sits. You can just kind of barely make it out. If we switch through some of the other... Actually, you can kind of see it here, because if you look at the door, there's some darkening as you get in toward the window. And what that is we're sloping back downward after coming up to the door jamb. See if I can find a better picture of it as we dig through some of these. There may be one, there may not be. That doesn't really show it because it gets a little too dark. Maybe back here. You can kind of make it out. Well, it's there all the same. Okay, so we'll just come back to this image. And let's go ahead and get that in there. First, we need to sort of level off the surface a bit. So we'll start off by grabbing some edges here across the top. And I'm also a little bit referring back to that die-cast model, which also shows this if I examine it really closely. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and grab the extrude edge tool, and we'll pull all of these inward just a little bit. And then I'll hit G, and I'll pull these in and down slightly. And then we can tweak the rest of that out to get the shape that we're looking for. Go ahead and start snapping to the curves. You'll notice our curvature is allowing for this indentation as well, so that's a good sign. Go ahead and frame up on this vertex. Okay. And maybe we'll just kind of interpret that going down just a little bit further than it does there. Now, we have an interesting situation here, because we kind of have this area where the rear view mirror is going to be attached. We have, basically, we have to blend it in over here to the blind spot, so a lot of stuff going on. What I'm going to do for the time being is we'll grab the extrude edge tool, and I'll extrude these over just a bit. Now let me go ahead and grab vertices. And we'll just snap this in place. We'll grab these two vertices and merge them together. Now let's grab edges again. We'll oh, I don't want to merge to center. I want to extrude edges. That's what I get for hitting G. Excuse me. And snap this in place, grab the pair of them, merge them together. And now what I'm going to do is just start taking some of these vertices and thinning this area out, because I don't really think it needs to indent quite that far as we get up here. Pull that in a little bit. A lot of that's going to be filled in when we create the piece that'll kind of fit in there to attach the rear view mirror, so I'm not going to stress that too much at the moment. We have a little bit of tweaking that we need to do to clean up this really nasty dent that we have going on here.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of ways we can do that. The first way is, well, the way that we've been tweaking up to this point, where you simply grab, like, move normal or your move tool, and you just start pulling and pushing vertices. Another way, which is really just as valid, is to let Maya do a little bit of the work for you by using the Sculpt Geometry tool. And I know I mentioned that earlier, so let's take a quick look at how we can use that. Now, when I'm using sculpt geometry on a model, especially when I'm smoothing out vertices with it, I like to select those vertices because you can select individual vertices with sculpt geometry, as you're probably well aware. So let's say we just grab these guys, and these other remaining verts I'll tweak out by hand, possibly after I take a look at this. Let's go to Edit Polygons, and there's the Sculpt Geometry tool. Let's take a look at our settings, which currently are set to smooth. My opacity is set kind of low. Let me just go ahead and reset the tool. So this is what you'll get if you come in here for the first time. And if you use this as it is when it's reset, you're just going to be pushing gigantic caving holes in, so you don't want that.
Cool.
You want to smooth, and I typically like to have my opacity set very, very low, as well as my max displacement. I'll just arbitrarily drag those very, very small, and then build up with multiple strokes. So you can see we kind of do that, just kind of start clicking a few strokes down. And really, even with just that much effort, if we were to come in here and switch to our smooth version, a lot of that was just cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
Now we do have some interesting denting kind of taking place as we shift from this nice round edge to this slightly straightened one. So what we can do to kind of help bleed that off a little bit is switch back over to World View, and we can start curve snapping these vertices here along this edge. I don't want to get too dramatic with it, maybe just a little bit at a time. Now, if you're worried about this edge coming to a point right here, remember, this is a crease anyways, so if it creates a crease in your geometry, that's actually a good thing, because that's kind of what you were shooting for in the first place. Looking pretty good up here, maybe just a little bit of denting taking place. And if we kind of sight along, it probably has to do with how dramatic this change in direction is at the moment. So notice I'm curve snapping along these polygon edges. And we'll kind of soften this one up a little bit. Check back. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and assign a blend material to this. We have an existing blend 1, which we can just quickly drop down. Not too bad. A little bit of pinching up in here, I see. And we can immediately see why. That little vertex in there that we can pull out and make a couple of adjustments to. Pull this in just a little bit. I'm just trying to straighten out these edges, so pardon me while I tweak a bit. And of course you're welcome to tweak right along with me. Alright, so let's see, let's switch over to our smooth model. Not half bad. Little bit of interesting shading, perhaps some denting taking place here at the front of the door.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just try this. Let's also grab these vertices. We'll grab that Sculpt Geometry tool and do some subtle smoothing. That seemed to help out quite a bit, actually. A little bit of pinching up here at the corner. So we switch back to our vertices, and we can kind of see why. And that could probably be pulled down a little. Let me switch over to normal mode. I should make that a little easier. Now I'm going to clean up the topology just a bit so that we don't end up with these real huge changes in direction on the edges. A little bit's okay. I just don't want it to get as dramatic as it happens to be at the moment. So like that I'm okay with. The points I'm okay with here because we do really have a crease in the geometry. In fact, we don't really want it to get too much sharper than that. We want it to be suggested. We can see it, and I think that's going to be enough for me. This is a very pretty car.
Yeah.
I want one.
Car we could never afford.
Yeah, probably not. Or if I could afford it, I'd be forced to ask what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. It's entirely possible that this straightening, this perfectly flat edge we have here at the top, isn't precisely accurate. Let me take a quick look around. I don't want the output window. I want to take a look at some other pictures of the car. Actually, there it is. So, I mean, you can see that pretty straight. So, yeah, maybe I'm right. Hard to say. Let's zoom in over here. We can... Yeah, that looks pretty straight. Yeah, that looks... maybe just a slight curvature down here. But that could also be curving backwards, because overall that looks like pretty much a plane that is going to blend away as you get back over the fender.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with what we've got in this case. Now, we will need to add some thickness to the door to separate this off as a separate panel of geometry, which will become really important later on once we start adding thickness to the door so that we can open it and create an interior, but we won't worry about that at the moment, because the interior of the door, where the handle is and the window controls and all that, are in all likelihood going to be a separate piece of geometry, so we're not going to be sweating that at the moment. I do, however, kind of notice that there might need to be a little more curvature down here. Let me take a look at a couple of pictures, see if I can find a picture that kind of shows that a little bit better as I sort through here. This one, let's get back to the big high-res version of that here, and we can zoom in. Maybe just some subtle curvature. That's not like a perfect, straight, flat, inward jaunt. So in order to get any sort of curvature there, I will need some more detail. Let's go back to object mode for a moment. And let me shift right mouse. We'll grab the split polygon tool. And I'll turn on some magnets in this case. So let's say snap at 100%. Something about like that, and start taking these and just creating a little bit of soft curvature. You know, I get all quiet like this, I feel like Bob Ross.
You're kind of like Bob Ross.
I just need a fro in this area, like some really happy vertices.
Yeah. Give these vertices a friend.
Yeah, they need a friend.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Makes me go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm hoping nobody's going to sleep right now. Okay, now let's go ahead and add some thickness to the door. We'd originally considered having random intervals where cymbals would crash really loud, but then they were afraid it might wake me up, so... Alright, so grab all of this. We can add a little bit of thickness here on top as well. Make sure you don't over-select and grab things you don't mean to. Now hang on a sec. I know I keep making these selections and then I stop and I need to make the selection again later. So what I'm going to do, because I think I'm not going to extrude this out just yet. There's something I want to do first. So because I've already come this far in my selection, I'm going to go to Create and come down to Sets, and I'll create a quick select set, and I'll call these Door Thickness Edges, so I can grab those later on if I just happen to need them. What I think I'm going to do is combine these two objects together. I mean, they kind of are one object in the first place, I keep opening that. I'm not sure why. There is a seam, a little bit of a crease in between them, but we can create that geometrically later on. I'm just thinking it might be easier for the sake of modeling to have these all combined as a single object right now.
Right.
So let's go ahead and grab both of these, and we'll go over to the Polygons menu and choose Combine as the same object. And we can grab all three of these vertices, which is actually a total of 6, and merge vertices. Merge goes down to 3, which is good. Now, if I hit tilde, we should be getting an error that we can't see because there's technically no smoothing here. So let's hit Control, tilde, and then there we go. So now they are one piece, which is good for us. The only catch now is I'll bet my quick select set doesn't actually work. Let's see if it does. I'll bet it doesn't. I won't be too shocked if it doesn't. So edit, quick select sets, door thickness edges, no. It can't work because we have a new polygon object. That's okay. We'll survive. Alright, I do want to take just a moment though, and I'm going to grab my split polygon tool, and we'll switch off those magnets. In fact, maybe it'll be easier, it probably will be easier in this case if I grab the split edge ring tool. And I'm going to make a split that's really close right here, so that when I jump over to the smooth model, we get actually a little bit of creasing right there. Maybe a little bit more would be called for. So we can undo, make that go away, and split it really, really close, and just see what this gets us. Yeah, it's a little bit nicer. I'll take a closer look at that here in a bit, maybe dig up some other pictures and see how accurate that may or may not be. Okay, so let's see. Probably need to go ahead and extrude these inward so that we have some thickness that we can work with. And for the time being, we'll just leave it at that. Let's go ahead and run an extrude edge. And I'll just pull these in just a little bit.
I think you missed one.
Did I?
I believe so.
I did. That's okay. I'll repair that in just a second.
Okay.
I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox here, just a tad. We're trying to keep everything in quads for obvious reasons because we're smoothing. And I'm going to leave them in quads, but I'm also, for now, just going to leave this vertex pretty much hanging. I'm trying to decide whether or not I really want to do that. I don't think it'll pose much of a problem for us. We do have a little bit of a gap we need to fill in here, so I need to, remember, because we have this little extra edge right here.
Right.
So I'll separate those out a little bit. Let's go back to object mode, and I'll grab the append to polygon tool and make a simple polygon that just flows right in there. Because in the end, once we get the blind spot complete, we're going to have some geometry that goes around the inside of the blind spot, because that's something you can see from the inside of the car. Right now I'm not too stressed about that, because we're still kind of working on just the outer shell by itself.
Right.
Alright, so let's go all the way around the door. Get all of these edges. Dun, 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 dun. Actually, you know what? Just for a bit, I'm gonna deal with these edges on the top of the door separately. And let's go in through here. get that guy I forgot earlier. Alright. And we'll extrude these edges. Now where's my manipulator? It's got to be around here someplace. Pull all of these inward just a bit. And we'll just clean up these vertices with a couple of quick snaps. No problem. Actually, I should probably make sure I have them both selected. I think I did. I'm just not 100%. Alright, 2 become 1. Excellent. And all of that is looking nice. All of that looks good. Let's take just a quick second and look at the smooth version. Not too bad. Let's take an opportunity, though, and let's go ahead and build in, if we can, the piece that will bridge these two together. We'll make the window a separate piece, but this little area where the mirror connects, I don't really see why that couldn't be just a regular part of the door itself. That's a list of videos. Let's make that go away. And just kind of double-checking the sides here, because let me see how far it goes back, make sure that it might be a little big here. You know, based off that curve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking. I'm thinking maybe that's just a little bit far back. Let's see, if I put us in about the same position... Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I guess it'll be alright. Just make sure I'm not crazy. Or at least not because of that, anyways. And, let's see, I'm going to start moving these vertices back. If I adjust this detail, I'll give myself something to build from. So, something kind of like so. And let's see, we have 3 going into 2. Not really a problem, but something to think about. Because I have 1, 2 edges here, then 1, 2, 3 up here. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of adjust some of this detail and make room for what might end up being a new edge running down this way, just to kind of keep everything nice and clean. Or, alternatively, I could just move some detail here and I'd probably be just fine. That's probably a better idea. Let me try that. For the sake of ease, I'm going to... Let's grab this object. We'll go to Show, Isolate Select, View Selected. So we'll clean everything else out. I'm going to clear off the thickness faces, at least up to there, and then I can just add them back in later. I'll just remove those. Let's get rid of these as well. Actually, no, I'll leave those, I think. No, okay, I know. Back and forth, make up your mind. Alright, now let's show everything again. And really, all we want to do is get this edge moved up here, kind of probably scoot this down, and get this edge kind of averaged out in between the two. So we'll just start here and simply curve snap, curve snap, curve snap. Probably snap that right there. Curve snap up, curve snap up, and then average these out a little bit. Now, what was that all about? Looks like I might have grabbed somebody I didn't mean to. Yeah, I did. Let's get rid of that face for the time being. And I can see why I deleted those.
Yeah.
They're easy to recreate, but for the time being, they're just going to kind of get in our way.
Mm-hmm.
We got a ton of history. While I'm thinking about that, let me go ahead and clear it off. And now let's take this vertex. Now, how's our curvature looking? Because I don't want to move this too far, because we might end up pulling away from what we had a moment ago. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to kind of do a little bit of both ideas, because the first idea, of course, was to split in a new edge.
Right.
The other was to move this. I'm actually going to do both.
Okay.
I'm going to move it and put in a new edge. We're going to begin by taking this edge and systematically scooting it back. Yeah, this will probably end up looking a lot better in the long run. Again, just lots of curve snapping. And I'll go ahead and let this edge start meandering closer to its little neighbor to the right here, just so we're making a little more room for an edge to pop in down here.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to object mode. Hold down Shift, and we'll grab the... Actually, let's see if I can do the split edge ring tool. Yeah, it looks like that's going to work out great. So that'll get me some detail in there that I can now adjust accordingly. Okay. Now, with that done, we can just slide this set of vertices up a little bit higher. Grab our split edge ring tool again, and there we go. So now, things are starting to get kind of fancy. We'll probably, if we're not really careful, end up with a triangle somewhere in here, but that's okay. I'll try to avoid it as best I can. Let me grab these three edges, and we're going to extrude these edges inward. I need to clean this up a little. Let's grab vertices. I'll click on one vertex and frame up on it so I can pivot about it. Let's grab this, snap into place over here. Alright, and we will merge those vertices. And what I'm going to do is select faces. I'll delete out these three faces, and these are going to become where I'll add in the little panel here where we will attach the mirror. So let's see, the easiest way to do this will probably be to grab the Append to Polygon tool, and then we'll just clean up our detail after we get it in place. And actually, if I'm not so much mistaken, that should technically be a quad. It is, because we have that little tiny edge down there. So this might work out just fine. We'll have to see. That's not too bad for starters. Grab this edge, and let's extrude that inward a little bit. And we'll merge those together. Now we have to put that edge back in. Should be easy enough, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and delete the rest of these out real quick. I know I created them earlier, but that was actually before I had the idea to make all of this one piece. I was going to keep it separated, but I think building it together is probably going to help out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We'll grab each of these edges. And we'll extrude these inward. Let's Not too far from what I was shooting for. But I'm going to scroll down and add an extra division into that extrusion, and you'll see why. So now I can come in here, select this vertex, which is kind of hidden. It's back here behind everything. And we can snap it right here. Grab this vertex, snap up here, and then merge those together. And there we go. That's all shiny all the way around. Grab this vertex, move down like so. Let's get our split polygon tool. And we'll just split from back here. Grab these two vertices and we'll merge these to center. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the isolate select. We'll switch on auto load new objects, and then we'll switch on view selected. So that'll get rid of everything but the door. Let's add some thickness back in here. Looks like we might have merged in a little bit of detail here that we didn't need to, so let me delete that out. We'll just grab edges all the way up through there. Okay, now we extrude this down just a bit, maybe just a little bit more. Then come back in and start cleaning up vertices once again. We'll snap. Merge the vertices. The same thing down here. And merge those two. Merge those, and now we're coming around kind of the underside of the door. Now, I have this little floating edge that leads back here. Now, the reason I'm leaving this in is later on when I bring in the window, if I need to kind of adjust the curvature here as I'm detailing, I'll have the ability to do that. I'll also be able to pull out maybe, or even make an extrusion if I want to create like a gasket around the window. I don't really need this detail to continue up here. So I can just leave this hanging for the time being. I won't worry about attaching it. If we check out the smooth version of this, which currently doesn't exist because it looks like we need to probably nuke out our history, or I've probably also still got, do I have isolate still on? Yes, I do indeed. So let's switch that off before that bites me again. And you'll notice that even though that's technically a 5-sided face back there in the back, it's not really harming us that much. So we'll leave it as is. Now, a little bit of rounding here would be kind of swank. We don't really have to have it, but it would be kind of nice if we did. So I'll take a look at how we can tweak some of that out and keep working on the door, but I'm going to do it in the next video. So we'll go ahead and pause things right here, and thanks a lot.